Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Welcome to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and joining me tonight is Reverend Emma Chattin of the Metropolitan Community Church of Northern Virginia. She and I were recently at a Pride event in Fairfax City, the 3rd annual, and we got to talking about the fact that a lot of people may think they understand what the celebration of Pride means, but we want to do a deeper dive tonight on this show to really talk about the genesis of the Pride celebration and the decades and decades of people who have helped to shape what we understand Pride to be. So, Reverend Emma Chattin, thank you so much for being here. It's been a minute since you've been on this show.
It has been.
But your longevity here in our area goes back to 1981, when the Metropolitan Community Church became the Metropolitan Community Church of Northern Virginia. You kind of created a new location for the DC-based church. But you've actually been in the city of Fairfax since 1997. That is a long time.
Yeah, it is. It is. And we enjoy being here. It's a wonderfully diverse community. It's centrally located. And plus, it just has great leadership.
Well, thank you. The Transgender Education Association of Greater Washington started in '82.
Yes, at least. It goes back to a much longer, older organization, but it started in 1982 to form the way that it was. And actually, in 2015, I restructured it to focus more on community building and education of the communities in which trans people live and work.
And so that might surprise a lot of our viewers, many of whom are fairly new to this discussion about the transgender community. It seems very recent to allies, even. But the LGBT, the T has been there for a long time. And so just like back when we were working on marriage equality and people are like, well, they didn't think they had any gay friends, right?
Yes, right.
I don't have any gay friends. It turns out, yes, you do have gay friends. They just didn't tell you or share with you, and there are reasons we should all ask ourselves why people who consider themselves our friends would not share such important information with us. But I think in the transgender community, there were people who were like, but I don't know anybody who is trans. But trans people have been around for such a very, very long time.
A long time. A long time. And my point is always, yes, you do know. You just don't know you know. It's not something that most people talk about. Trans people don't want to naturally go around educating other people sometimes. Really, we just want to live our lives, and that's the biggest thing. But the Transgender Education Association exists as a means by which to do that, to be that educational arm for people in communities. For example, somebody could be working somewhere, and they want to have TGEA come in and educate their employer and educate the employees around them. And we do that so that they don't have to.
And that's something I think people also don't consider is the point at which someone decides to transition. Mm-hmm. You know, there's high-profile stories, Caitlyn Jenner being one of the, I know, but you knew Bruce Jenner, and now Caitlyn Jenner exists, and a large segment of conservative people have accepted that. So is it the fact that it's certain people who can be accepted as trans and certain other people who are not going to be accepted as trans? Because this country is struggling on so many levels.
I would say that might have been true 6-8 months ago. Right now, though, the trans community, irregardless, is under attack. So, for example, I know individuals in the military who are as conservative as it gets, who are losing their job, and actually this week and next week, and it breaks my heart. These are individuals who have served long, hard, and faithfully, and they're being ushered out. Not just ushered out; they're being ushered out not unlike the federal workers, meant to feel some shame that you're not supposed to be here anyway. So the trans communities are under very much attack right now. And so TGA, I think, is more important than ever because we do educational outreaches in churches, we do it in hospitals, we do nurses, we do doctors. We try to have the most impact we can. So when a doctor goes into a room, we want them to be educated. We want them to understand. You think that they would. No one is born knowing this. So we go in and we do that educational process. So I think it's more important than ever. But the biggest thing is that we're facing individuals who are losing their ability to document themselves. And so they're becoming document locked. I have friends who can't travel overseas because of passport issues. And if they send in their passport to have it renewed, the feeling is, and how it has happened with people I know, is that gender marker is changed without their consent and sent back to them. Now, the passport is an important document. It allows you to move freely. It is also a point of security. So in other words, if you go through into a country and your appearance does not match what's on your passport, it can be a dangerous situation. So we have individuals who can no longer leave this country because of that. Once that happens, it messes with their Social Security, with their Medicare, everything. And people need to know this, that this is actually taking place. For example, in Texas, if the governor signs what's on his desk, every trans person in Texas will be detransitioned. All of their gender markers will be changed. What does this do to a person's employment? What does it do to their safety? What does it do when they're driving their car and they get pulled over? And we're such a small sliver of the population, I don't understand to a degree some of the meanness that's taking place. Sorry, it's just a big issue.
Well, it is, and and I'm sure people are tired of the parallels being drawn with previous fascist regimes that specifically targeted the LGBTQ community, along with other communities, for elimination.
Yeah.
This is not small change. This is not insignificant. And people are like, but this is America. Well, regimes change, and I think we are all paralyzed at this point in understanding what's happening. History has already shown us where this goes. I think we are paralyzed as a society, as a community, in how to respond to what we know is a clear and present danger to a group of Americans who should have rights that are protected.
And they also extend even further. There is talk about when you go to vote, using your birth certificate so that you can vote. That automatically disenfranchises the trans communities.
And women voters, too.
And women voters, too.
That would disenfranchise me.
Exactly. So that disenfranchisement is important. And we look at what we can do to kind of impact this. One of the biggest things in our communities is we look at building communities. We look at coming together. We look at understanding that we're not alone. We look at impacting things within arm's reach, taking care of each other. That's kind of our first step, and we move outward. But politically, the trans community is not large enough to gain political capital to have a voice. And we don't have the means by which to do that right now, since everything is all of one party, one group. So we don't have the ability to do that. But you mentioned something, too, that I think is very important. Marriage rights. All of these rights. This is just the beginning. This is not the end. So in other words, by erasing the T from all the websites, you can't find it on any federal websites anymore, it's going to move inward. It's going to move to the rest of the letters of the coalition that we've made. Why? Well, because we are DEI. We are inclusive. And it's our nature. It's why we keep adding letters. That's why.
So talking about Stonewall, because, that is a national park, and one of the first things when these executive orders started coming out is they stripped the T out of LGBT in the Stonewall Park, which is ridiculous because the woman who led that was a trans person.
Yes, exactly. And I do want to speak to Pride in terms of the importance of Pride. I think that Pride takes place now. It's to look back where we were, to celebrate where we are, and to plan and think about where we're going to be. And that's what we do during this month in a focused way. But to put it into context, it began with a riot, and it began at the Stonewall Inn. And at that time, in many places in this country, it was illegal for homosexuals to congregate. And I think people need to wrap their head around that. Illegal to congregate, as if we might achieve some sort of, homo critical mass. I don't know, but we couldn't congregate. Once that changed in New York in 1966, you could congregate, but you couldn't dance and you couldn't kiss, and even buying someone else a drink, if they're same sex, could be construed as disorderly conduct. Stonewall Inn was owned by the mafia. It was regularly raided, and the drinks were excessively priced. And that night when it was raided, the story goes that a lesbian was handcuffed, and she said, "The cuffs are too tight, can you loosen them?" And in return, the police officer threw her in the paddy wagon. When he did, Marsha Johnson and Sylvia Rivera reacted and began throwing pennies. Then everybody joined in, throwing pennies, rocks, bricks. It evolved into a riot. And the police had to retreat. They retreated inside the bar, okay? That was how bad it got. And then the next step was they set the bar on fire. So it was a very dangerous situation, very volatile. It wasn't pretty. It was a riot. And what did Martin Luther King say? Riot is the language of the unheard. And so that's what was taking place. And it didn't just last one night. It was like 5 nights, okay? It was an extended period. What this did is it built community. It built coalitions between gays, lesbians, and trans people. For the very first time, we began to stand up together and move through this. And that's what happened in 1969.
Well, we are going to delve into this some more because we have to really unpack, as you said, the past, where we are, and where we hope to be. So please, join us after this break. We are talking with Reverend Emma Chattin of the Metropolitan Community Church of Northern Virginia, located here in Fairfax City.
Nice going, Spencer! I can't believe we broke Old Man Hennessy's window.
Correction, dude. You broke. I just threw the ball.
This is really bad. What are we gonna do?
We?
Go to the door, ask for the ball back. Are you serious?
It's my ball, Myrtleback.
You're so dead. I'd run away.
Yeah, to Uruguay.
Kiss your life goodbye. Sorry.
Let's go.
Dad.
See you, dude. See ya. You remember me and you're well.
Nice one. Some friends you are.
Keep smiling, keep shining.
Hi.
You
Tell him it was an accident.
count on me
And we can fix the window.
for sure.
Come on.
Oh,
I'll come with you.
friends are
Loyalty. Pass it on.
You go first.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. Wanted some matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about treetop life. Nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Yeah.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health
at seizetheawkward.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and we are talking about Pride Month. And my guest tonight is the Reverend Emma Chattin of the Metropolitan Community Church of Northern Virginia. When we went to break, Reverend Chattin, we were talking about the Stonewall riots and how that was sort of the genesis of what became the gay liberation movement, which turned into Pride. But before Stonewall, there's a whole lot of history before that happened.
There is. There were many moments and many riots that did happen. There were some significant ones. In 1959, there was the what was known as the Donut Riot in Los Angeles. And it was a donut shop. It was where individuals who were of the trans community, many of them were sex workers, who went late at night. The story goes that the police began hassling them. Coffee was spilled, donuts were thrown, and it proceeded from there. Backups were called, and that was it. Okay, so that riot ended. The next one that comes to mind was the Compton cafeteria riot, and I think that was in 1966. And it was of the same setting. It was where the trans individuals went. They were harassed by both their clients, and police. One of the police officers touched one of the trans women, and she did. She threw coffee on him, and then it ensued. They were hit with purses, everything, windows were broken. That riot went on. I think 14 people were arrested, and that was it. What made those and what made Stonewall so different is that crowds gathered outside, numbering in the thousands of people, not just gays and lesbians and trans people in the community, allies. It became a very large riot, very big, and it couldn't be ignored. And that spark spread across the country. And it wasn't, we think about today, Pride, and we have parades and we have festivals and everything's so nice and pretty. It wasn't. It was a riot. It was crazy. The very next year, 1970, they had the very first Pride parade to commemorate that. And so it's important that we remember that time when somebody said, enough, we're not going to take this anymore. And we were joined by allies. We can't do this on our own. We need people to stand up and to actually support our communities, to do what's right. Because we are not asking anyone else to live as we do. We're simply asking to live as we do ourselves. What we're facing right now is everybody telling us how to live, and that's wrong. So that's what we're facing right now. And
to your point, the percentage of the percentage of people who are in the LGBTQ community who identify as gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual, queer, questioning, intersex, very small.
The best statistics we have is anywhere from between 8 to 10% in all of the letters. And it varies as you break it down. But if we're actually going to look at trans individuals, it's between 0.6 and 0.8%. That may be about 300,000 people in the whole country. It is not very many individuals.
So why is so much political energy, headlines, so much power politically invested in such a small number of people? I mean, we should be asking ourselves, why so much invested on so few?
I would think people would have so much better things to do with their government. I really would. I would like to go back to the days when we were on talk shows, and that was part of it. But now the attention that we're gathering is very negative. And the thing that perplexes me is we're talking about destroying something that took place. Christine Jorgensen began her transition in 1949. Okay, that's important to remember. She completed and it went public in 1953. So we've been dealing with transsexuals since that period of time, and there have been some very high-profile individuals. Overnight, by the stroke of a pen, that was struck down, saying there are only two sexes and they are unchangeable. That upsets years of psychological, medical, social, and cultural processes. And so I don't understand. It's a very small percentage of the population. This is why we need allies.
Absolutely, because in any community, the number of people being targeted by a very large, powerful government with literally all the weapons at their disposal, legal and otherwise, are concentrated in a small number of people. But this small number of people are inside our workplaces, our schools, our churches, our communities, and in our town square. So if allies don't step up, if they don't say, this is not acceptable, I will not just accept the fact that these edicts or these executive orders that are being handed down about gender or what's on your birth certificate or your name when you go to vote, that any of this is acceptable. I mean, I think at some point, and we're only 6 months into this, at some point there has to be a response. And I think, again, the country is paralyzed in how to respond. I mean, I think of the French Resistance. You know, the Nazis came, they occupied Paris, and people didn't go, well, I'm not sure what we should do now. They had to figure out what to do because people's lives depended on it. And I feel like people's lives depend on this too, on our response.
People's lives do depend on this. The other thing that's important to remember is what trans individuals bring to our society. In many cultures, in indigenous cultures, trans individuals were seen as those who move in two different worlds. When somebody has experiences the way individuals in the trans communities have, that's valuable experience. And I don't think trying to make it more difficult is in any way helpful. The other part about it is a matter of life and death. The suicide rate within the trans communities is the attempt rate, about 41%. The serious suicidal ideations, about 80%. That is orders of magnitude above the general population. It is not because of the way trans individuals are. It is the way trans individuals have to fight in order to fit into a society that's ill-prepared for them. And it has gotten so much unbelievably worse. I have individuals that are teens. I have individuals that are teachers. Individuals worried about their jobs. I have kids in the military. They're children of military parents who have lost their ability to get the treatment that they need in order to live the life that they have to live.
Yeah, the withholding of treatment is definitely, it has real world impacts and on trans people of all ages too. And it varies by state, which is the other difficult thing, is that when your state legislature can basically decide what rights you will or won't have. And then we've seen this with reproductive justice movements. I mean, there's been so much rolling back of rights that people have had for 50 years. And again, I think the country is grappling with what tools we have to push back.
It's the same way within the communities. We're just trying to do the best that we can. So, we have individuals in Texas that we're trying to help relocate. And, some people say, come to Virginia, and I'm kind of like, I don't know about that. I suggest Maryland because there are things, Virginia is an interesting state. I don't want somebody to have to move here and relocate. So, but we're actually going backwards in that it matters where you live as to how you can live. And it is a patchwork of things so that it makes travel difficult, vacations difficult. You have people canceling vacations in Florida and Texas. And people coming in overseas, individuals who are trans, canceling their trips.
And that impacts our economy, obviously. We haven't even started to see the impacts on our economy. You had mentioned earlier about trans members of the military simply being drummed out of the service. And I've seen the postings too. And what has struck me is in the great harm and injustice done to these military members, all I have seen them post is what an honor it was to serve their country. That they appreciated the opportunity to serve their country, and how their colleagues have responded to them being summarily dismissed for who they are. And again, I feel for the military particularly because there's a very hierarchical, structured chain of command there, but there's not a whole lot that these military people can do even if they disagree with this?
No, there's really nothing they can do. I really credit, and you're exactly right, the responses that they gave testify to the fact that they are where they should be. One of the women was saying, the president is my commander-in-chief and I obey the orders. And if the orders are this, then I obey the orders. If the president calls me back, I will come back to serve. And so, but not without protest, because I have served honorably and well. And I want that known. And so it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see some of these individuals who have worked so hard to be who they are, to become better citizens, better soldiers, better individuals to defend our country. And they're being summarily dismissed.
And then I think about our political leaders. You know, we rejoiced when Danica Rome was elected to the Virginia House of Delegates in 2017, the first trans woman ever elected to any legislature anywhere, and it happened here in Virginia.
It did.
And proud moment. Since then, we've had Sarah McBride in Delaware and Zoe in Montana. I can't remember Zoe's last name, but these are trans women who fought hard to get the electorate, the community, the voters in their state to vote them into these legislative offices. And here they are.
And they're being disrespected in the legislative offices. Sarah McBride was misgendered and is consistently misgendered on the congressional floor and addressed as Mr. McBride. You know, I admire her so much. She holds her head up. She moves through that as best as she can. But her constituents voted her in. And yet she's being consistently disrespected and told she can't use the bathrooms that are public bathrooms there.
Yeah. And I think we have to examine, again, what our response is to that. You know, I'm very proud of Danica Rome. I will always support Danica Rome. I would never allow, in my presence, someone to disrespect Danica Rome. And I just think that in small ways, we've got to figure out what we can do with what we have to say to the people around us, it's not okay.
It's not okay, but I do want to say something about Danica. I admired her so much when somebody tried to bait her on her opponent to say something bad about them. And she said, no, so-and-so is my constituent.
Oh, I know exactly. It was Bob Marshall.
Exactly.
It was Bob Marshall.
And she said, Bob Marshall is my constituent, and I will not say anything bad about him.
Well, and on that positive note, we're going to go to a short break. You are welcome to rejoin us after the break. We are talking about Pride, celebrating Pride, and my guest is the Reverend Emma Chattin of the Metropolitan Community Church of Northern Virginia. We are ready to do another deep dive right after this break.
So, I just moved in with this family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that. That's disgusting. Oh, poop already. You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
So how was work?
It was 1,300 hours. My math class from 302 was in the trenches. Davy Roth had it the worst. Fractions were coming at him left and right. He just didn't get the damn things. 2 days ago, I tried to teach him what 1/4 of 1/2 was using different sizes of blocks. Yesterday, I tried again by dividing up pizza. Both missions failed.
Oh, no.
But today, I was ready. I created a combat math game where the only way to beat the enemy is to out-fraction them. Davy conquered every last denominator. My game was so successful, the principal is deploying it to math squadrons all over the school.
Anywho, how was your day?
Oh, today my boss treated the office to salad wraps.
Salad wraps.
I know.
150 over 90.
180 over 111.
160 over 110. I had a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure looks like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a stroke are far from invisible or silent. If you've come off your treatment plan, get back on it or talk with your doctor to create an exercise, diet, and medication plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and we are talking about Pride, celebrating Pride, the history of Pride, and how all of us can support recognizing, celebrating, and supporting our LGBTQ community. So, Reverend Emma Chattin, when we went to break, we were talking about our mutual friend, Senator Danica Roem, and the fact that she was the first trans woman elected in any legislature anywhere in the United States. Very proud about that, very proud to know her. But when we talk about how Sarah McBride is being misgendered in Congress and the response to that, I have stated that if somebody misgendered Senator Roem in my presence, I would not just sit there. I would say, excuse me, no. Like, it's not okay, it's inappropriate, don't appreciate it, you do not have the right to do that. And you have spoken previously about how all of us need to find things that are within arm's reach that we can do.
Yes.
What do we have at our disposal to do?
So what you were talking about right there is allyship, and that's very important. Standing up for individuals, standing up for them on social media, in person, and at the ballot box to defend these individuals who are being misgendered, individuals who their documents are being taken away. We do need our allies. How do we do that? I think that probably is building community, and that's one of the things that I really focus on with TGEA. Some people call it a support group. I call it a community building group because I believe that support happens organically when you build community. It happens. You just see people making connections and supporting one another across many chasms that are social and cultural chasms and spaces between. So we get together on the second Friday of every month, and we have a large group of individuals, and we have a breakout group for parents of teens and trans kids. We have a breakout group for trans masculine individuals, and we have a breakout group for teens and tweens. Altogether, we're talking probably anywhere from between 40 to maybe 70 individuals coming together and helping each other. And out of that group, we have allies. We have people that come to learn more about the community. We had Jimmy Bierman, the Fairfax County Supervisor. He joined us. I invited him to a meeting, and he came. I was
great.
I was really thrilled, and so he got to hear what our community deals with. And it's important for individuals who are legislators. You may only know 2 or 3. If you come to a second Friday, you will know 30, 40, 50 individuals here in this area who come to those gatherings. And so it was very educational to him. And he said all the other members of the supervisory board expressed their interest in coming at one point in time. So that's something important, allies. And individuals who have bigger voices than ours, individuals who are elected officials, bigger voices, move in larger spaces, those are important with regard to allies as well. But even next door neighbors, again, people within arm's reach, people you can hug, people you can talk to, who will stand up for you and stand with you, because we can't do it alone. And if we don't shift this, then we're going to be in deeper trouble. We do have the GLBTIQ coalition, but even that is not very big. Parents of trans kids are important. I have seen parents of trans kids change their political party because of their kids, because of seeing what matters. All of a sudden, this issue comes home under their roof. It makes a big difference. So maybe a generation ago, we were talking about individuals who are gay and lesbian and their families making that change. Currently in this generation, it's individuals that are trans, non-binary.
You know, I think about Gavin Grimm. And that was another remarkable sort of milestone, like, you know, the Supreme Court case, and then, you know, then he graduated and it was moot, and so they weren't going to hear it, and it was sent back. And But Gavin Grimm and others of his generation who were at the forefront of being young and being trans and deciding to go public. And they were pioneers. And I look at the courage it took for their parents, for their families, and for the communities and the allies who gathered around them to support them. And I think, what do we do now? There's so many, in my community, I know of more trans kids than just the two I could name 10 years ago.
Yes.
And so how do we gather around? I mean, putting out, a garden flag that is the progress flag, having a bumper sticker that says, you support, what are the ways in which people can say, my community includes this community. I support this community. What are the visible ways that we, in all aspects of our life, can say, not just during Pride Month in June, but the LGBTQ community is an important part of my community?
An important part of the fabric of our community, and there are so many ways that you can do it. One is your lapel pin. People see that, and you may actually not know it, but you'll be out someplace, and people will know that you're a safe person, and they know that they can turn to you. So those outward and visible signs are important. Going to meetings. I tell people, if you're attending a church and you always go to the same church, go to a different church one Sunday. If that's sacrilegious to you, then you might want to reflect on the process of your religion. But I support these individuals, these communities. Get out and make a serious effort. Because again, it's not getting any better, and we need every single ally that we can possibly have. And like I said, TGEA, I am willing to talk with anybody. I'm willing to share. I'm willing to educate. It's what we've done ever since at least 2015 in various places. So.
And is there a place in the faith communities, to make it visible to their internal congregations and communities that they are a welcoming, inclusive, supportive place of worship that includes the LGBTQ community? I mean, once upon a time it was very controversial, and then it kind of was less. You saw churches having book groups or readings or meetings or all kinds of things, and people understood that, yes, I belong to this church and it's a welcoming church, and we see all the evidence that there are members of our congregation who are part of the LGBTQ community, and everybody's good with that. Is this a moment in time when faith communities could and should do more?
Yes, they have to. Faith communities have to, especially when we're looking at like the Southern Baptist Convention that recently voted to begin to actively campaign to roll back same-sex marriage.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's scary. To me, it is absolutely ridiculous that people have to vote on my relationship, that a judge has to tell me that my relationship is valid. That really steams me. Heather and I got married as soon as we could in D.C., and then we got married again in Virginia because I don't trust Virginia. And when we got married, we opted to have our wedding ring not on our typical left hand, we put it on our right hand. And we also opted not to have it on our standard ring finger. We have it on the finger next to that. So it communicates our feeling, our very strong feeling, that relationship is not something that should be mediated by law, by church, by anything. It's something that we built. And we got married because we believe in the rights, not because it bestows anything else on our relationship that needs to be. So the whole issue of marriage is important. Religion ties into this because I always tell religious communities, don't say we're open and affirming unless you really are. Okay, you can easily say that, but you have to make sure all your members are on board. The worst possible thing that you can do is say, we're open and affirming, and discover that you're not as open and affirming as you might like to be. So we do educational outreaches in houses of worship, and I think that that's important. When I was at the Fairfax City Pride, there are other affirming church communities.
Yes, there were.
Which is great. I love to see them. But somebody came up to me and said, so what makes MCC different? And my initial response was, how much time do you have? But instead, I said simply, if you go to worship in an affirming community, you may encounter 10% of that religious community to be GLBTIQ. Mm-hmm. If you go to worship in an MCC, you will encounter 85% to be a part of the LGBTQ. So in other words, the whole approach to everything, the theological approach, everything is vastly different. You know, we are queer. The whole, it is a part of our ethos and who we are, which I think is important. And I always encourage people. You know, my father was a Methodist minister. I have a great appreciation for the Methodist denomination, naturally, but that was where I was pursuing. I gave my first sermon when I was 16, but then I discovered how they felt about people like me. So I did what all good college students do when they don't know what they want to do. I changed my major to psychology. So, and it hasn't gotten in my way. But I always longed to serve in a church community. And Heather introduced me to MCC, and that was in 1997, and I was ordained in 2004. So the denomination, I would not belong to any other. This denomination was born queer. It began in 1968, a year before Stonewall, by Reverend Elder Troy Perry, a Pentecostal minister who was defrocked for being gay. And he went to a bar that was raided, and his friend was in jail. And Troy started praying, and his friend goes, "Troy, why are you praying?" And Troy goes, "Because God loves us." And his friend said, "God doesn't care about a bunch of queers." And Troy, being Pentecostal, said, "God, if you want me to start a church for your people, you let me know." And he said, the still small voice within said, "Now." So Troy advertised in a gay newspaper about having a worship service in his house. The newspaper thought it was a joke. And then once they discovered it wasn't a joke, they were concerned because here were homosexuals congregating, risking arrest. So when he had the first worship service, 12 individuals showed up. And there were a lesbian, a gay man, a trans person, a bi person. There was a person from every one of our tribes there, and it was 12 people. And that's when it started in 1968. So MCC was born queer. It was born in this community, really the first and only one that I know of that began that way. So we never had to vote on accepting anybody. And so I could not in good conscience belong to any other denomination that has to vote on saying, yes, we believe you belong, because to me that's very troubling.
It is very troubling, and I think the attack on same-sex marriage is very real. And I think that for all of us who have family, loved one, friends, coworkers who are gay married, we need to start feeling a sense of urgency about all of this. But when we come back for our final segment, we are going to get more of our questions answered about Pride, how we celebrate, support, uplift, and keep safe those in our community.
Hi. Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably going to turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right?
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
What's wrong with the world, mama? People living like they ain't got no mama. I think the whole world's addicted to the drama, only attracted to things that'll bring the trauma. Yeah, madness is what you demonstrate, and that's exactly how anger works and operates. Man, you gotta have love just to set it straight. Take control of your mind and meditate. Let your soul gravitate to the love, y'all.
People killing, people dying, children hurt, and you hear them crying. When you practice what you preach, but you turn the other
Ma'am, you forgot your purse.
Oh, you don't know how worried I was. Thank you very much.
Honesty. Pass it on.
Nice move, kid.
Jonah?
a message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows, maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and tonight we are talking about Pride because it is Pride Month. Every June is Pride Month here in the United States and actually in countries around the world. In fact, World Pride is taking place in D.C., and Reverend Emma Chattin, I know you've been involved in the Pride event in the city of Fairfax, where your church is located. There has been hurdles and challenges around participation in World Pride because it is not safe for people in other parts of the world to be in our city, which makes me incredibly sad.
Makes me sad too. And we've been involved in Fairfax City Pride, Reston Pride, all the prides basically through here, and having individuals table at those for both TGEA and the Metropolitan Community Church. We want to let people know that you can be a person of faith. You can be a spiritual person. Even more than that, we're in the Bible. We're everywhere. We just have to learn how to look. Originally, women weren't allowed to really kind of engage in the Bible or preach or anything. Once women began reading the scriptures, once women began preaching, we discovered there are women in the Bible. They have their own individual stories. Once queer people began exploring the scriptures, we encounter queer people within the scriptures. And that's been taken away from our community. It's the same way that history can be rewritten by those who are in power. And we have to take back that power. And I think that that's very important. So having a spiritual presence at Pride is important, just as important as having TGEA there. So, again, Pride commemorates that June 28th, early morning hours when the riots began and lasted until July 3rd. So that's why we do it. So Pride was both a protest and, at least today, protest, and it's a celebration because we're still protesting. And our rights are under attack, and marriage rights, as you had mentioned. We're not going to go back. We're not going to go back. That's important. I grew up in the days where couples who had lived together for 30, 40, 50 years all their lives, and one of the individuals died, and the other individual had no legal rights and lost everything that they had invested in the relationship together. My heart bled for those. That was not right. And so I still encourage people, even if you're married, take care of all your legal papers, make sure you sew things up so that your partner gets what they're supposed to get. So that family who disagrees with how you live doesn't swoop in and try and take things from your partner.
You know, and that's the whole thing too, since we got marriage equality back in 2015. You know, this is not just about couples, this is about families.
It is.
This is about families with children.
And
what we're basically looking at is someone targeting these particular families to tell them they don't have rights, or their rights can be taken away, or their family can be deconstructed.
That their relationship is not valid. No matter how much they love each other, your relationship is not valid. And that's what they're saying with all of these kind of steps and attacks. And, you know, we can't sit around and say, oh, that can't happen, because history has proven that it can happen. Things that we thought and believed were settled law are not. And so marriage is just another one of those.
And I think we have to be concerned. And, you know, we are who we are You know, I came into this world with a genetic blueprint, and you can say, is it nurture, is it nature? Do we have free will? These existential questions. What is our life? What is the meaning and purpose? But we all arrived on this planet with a certain genetic blueprint. And it's part of what makes us who we are, aside from the choices that we make, the paths that we choose, the life that we ultimately live. And the fact that we are trying to separate out certain kinds of people as if they are not worthy of dignity, respect, love, acceptance, and belonging. In what community, in what world, in what place is that ever acceptable?
It's not acceptable. It tears at the fabric of our relationship. It tears at the fabric of neighborhoods and cities. It's something that I think everyone should recognize is serious and is harmful and is like a virus. So I really have issues with that in the strongest terms.
Well, you've had to make choices your whole life too. And in a time and a place that was not open and welcoming to who you were and who you are. But here you are at this point in your life having trod that path you chose. And not because a lot of it was an option, it was who you are.
Exactly. This is, we don't even know, we don't exactly know why we are the way we are. But it is the way we are, and it's the way that we've always been. But, you know, I mean, I'm pretty quick to say that, you know, being trans is the least interesting thing about myself because I am a person with a variety of interests. And so I like to talk about many different things. But one of the things too, this hurts me more than anything, is the tide that's swinging in this direction places people in our communities at greater risk. Within the past 3 days, there was a trans woman in Philadelphia who had a caustic substance sprayed on her. She's in the hospital right now recovering. That's horrible. Also, within the past month, we had a stone butch lesbian beat up coming out of the bathroom. Whether they thought that she was a man or not, it was gender policing. It was, you don't look the way that you're supposed to look in order to use that bathroom. And they beat her up. We have the Transgender Day of Remembrance service, which are individuals who are murdered simply for living their lives. So what's happening now puts people at greater risk, not just the trans community. We have more crimes against gay individuals, lesbian individuals, individuals whose gender presentation may not match what other people think it should be. And that's the part that really strikes at my core as well.
You know, we had our high school graduation last Thursday, and I presented scholarship checks to 3 amazingly talented, accomplished, high-achieving, graduating seniors. And in reading their profiles, one of them, who just an amazing person, it was referenced as they, them, right?
Yep.
And so people sitting in a football stadium understood in reading the profile of this very accomplished person that they, them is the pronoun of their choice.
Yes.
And up until 6 months ago, that would not have been anything to anyone. But it all seems to have changed.
It does.
And now I worry about the safety of individuals who are like, I am they, them.
I am they, them, or I am trans. All of these are at greater risk. Individuals that identify as they, them have a generally much more difficult path to follow, because this, I mean, I grew up at the period of time where there were only transsexuals, and then that got broadened to transgender individuals. And so issues of non-binary was never in question. Individuals who were trans moved from one box to the other. But the non-binary makes sense because humanity is on a spectrum. And so to me, it is a beautiful expression. I think one of the ones where one theologian said, where people say that, it's only one or the other. And it's easy to say, God created day and night, but have you ever seen a sunset filled with so many beautiful colors that you can't see in day or night? God created the land and the ocean, but have you ever seen a beach? Have you ever seen a place that's similar to both but unlike either? This is the beauty of creation. And so to me, these are the things that I think are beauty, that excite me, that are a part of our community, that makes us unique and beautiful and wonderful, and again, so much to contribute to the rest of the world.
And it's, to me, an investment we have made as a country, in our communities, again, in our school, our workplaces, in our town square, and to allow a small number of very powerful people to try to take that away from all of us, to me, is something worth fighting for. I think where we are stuck is what that fight looks like.
Well, it's easy to be stunned. It's easy to be stunned right now. And we've always looked back and said, how on earth could that have happened? Well, now we know. We are in that position. But again, I think it's important to build community. It's important to come together. It's important to find communities. It's important to reach out and say, how can I help? It's important to wear pins. It's important to declare that you're a safe space. I think all of these things are necessary. And again, not just for the trans or non-binary communities, but for the GLBT communities at large. And the GLBT communities are the only communities I know of that are composed of a part of the rest of society, right. Which to me is beautiful. And it means that we have that ability to connect with others. And within our family, we have that kind of family slang, but we have it in such diverse ways. So,
well, we do, and I will say this about the Pride event in Fairfax City, which was a morning event instead of an evening event this year. We said it was family friendly, and there were so many families with young children, and that does give me hope, and we all have to hang on to hope. It gives me hope that there are families out there who want their children to understand that celebrating the LGBTQ community is part of recognizing that everyone belongs. And we should celebrate that people are different.
And that's important, because individuals in the LGBT community are born that way. However, hate is not born. Kids have to be taught that. And by the same token, when you teach kids that it's a beautiful world and you see kids playing in that event, it is a family reunion. It is that we come together. They're the future. They're the future that hopefully will change things that we're facing.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Reverend Emma Chattin, and to remind people that they are welcome in the Metropolitan Community Church of Northern Virginia. Everybody is welcome. I would say the same thing about the city of Fairfax. Everyone is welcome there, and I hope people feel safe, seen, that they belong, and that our community values everyone in our community. So I will just end by saying, happy Pride. Happy Pride. Go out there and support in every way that you can think of the people in this community who need our help.
And I say amen.
Amen. There we have it. Inside Scoop, every Monday, 8 p.m. right here on Channel 10.